he couldn't fail, because if he failed, they might not try this again for years.
Brooklyn got Jackie Robinson.
After an early season slump raised doubts about whether Rickey had chosen the right player, Robinson got hot, showing off an exciting, unfamiliar brand of the game, what white baseball had been missing.
Most of the players, he made believers out of them by his ability to play the game of baseball. You could see the competitive spirit coming out through his eyes. It rubbed off on all of us. There was a lot of fire in the air with Jackie on the team, but it became less racial and more that this guy's a superstar.
Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball?
In the street, Jackie Robinson hit that ball. It went zooming across the left field wall. Yeah, boy.
Yes, Jackie hit that ball.
Coming down third base, pigeon-toed, driving the pitcher crazy.
He'd get into a rundown, and they go back and forth 7 times tossing the ball, and they still couldn't get him.
My heroes before that were all white heroes from comic books, and then here comes Jackie Robinson. So he replaced Captain Marvel and Superman.
In those days, you didn't know anybody who was of color, who was a hero to everybody else, regardless of color.
But isn't it a fact when Jack came to bat, the other team was through?
But it's a natural fact when Jackie comes to bat, the other team is through.
47, the Dodgers win the pennant. It has been a spectacular success.
Another of the boys directly responsible for Brooklyn winning the pennant, Jackie Robinson.
I want to thank each and every one of you, and I'm sure that when we get out in the field of Yankee Stadium and we come back here to Brooklyn, we're going to give all we have to bring the championship right here into Brooklyn. Thanks again.
The 1947 Rookie of the Year had led Brooklyn back to the World Series, only to face Joe DiMaggio and the Yankees once again. The Subway Series would go 7 games, and despite the heroics of unheralded Dodgers like Cookie Lavagetto, whose 2-out 9th-inning double broke up a no-hitter in 1 Game 4, and Al Gianfrido, who helped force a 7th game by robbing DiMaggio of a home run. When it was over, the Yankees were the ones celebrating again. Despite the loss, the historic 1947 season brought pride, even a swagger, to Brooklyn.
To break a barrier, to bring a black man on. Remember, that happened in Brooklyn. So that's why Brooklyn was special. Didn't happen in Yankee Stadium.
The great experiment belonged forever to Brooklyn. And even Mr. Petition himself, Dixie Walker, was convinced.
He went over to Jack and shook his hand and gave Jackie credit for helping us win the pennant in '47.
Rickey shipped Walker off to Pittsburgh anyway, taking his usual 15% cut and sending a message that the team and the times were changing.
In the summer of 1947, Truman addresses the NAACP's national meeting in Washington.
There is no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry, or religion, or race, or color.
He appoints a commission to begin investigating civil rights, and they produce a document that cites Jackie Robinson in Major League Baseball as an example of where this country can go.
What the Dodgers did that was so subversive was make it clear to the culture at large that segregation really was a system of oppression, because the minute you got rid of it, talent flowed.
Mostly because of Robinson, but also because the Dodgers come to symbolize integration. They developed a following throughout the nation.
They created Brooklyn fans in Missouri, North Dakota, all points north, south, east, and west. The Brooklyn Dodgers was true America. That's the intrinsic meaning of the Brooklyn Dodgers that Jackie Robinson used. They introduced democracy. When you changed baseball, you changed America.
As the rest of baseball slowly integrated, Branch Rickey stayed ahead of the game. In 1948, he brought up Roy Campanella, half black, half Italian, to Brooklyn after a decade as a catcher in the Negro Leagues. In '49, another Negro Leaguer, pitcher Don Newcomb, joined the team and quickly became the staff ace.
You had not just 3 African-American players, you had 3 great African-American players. Campanella and Newcomb didn't have to be Jackie Robinson. They could just be baseball players.
The Dodgers were the rising stars of the National League, with a lineup that would spend the better part of the next decade winning games and carving a place in the heart of every kid in Brooklyn.
As I remember my boyhood, it was always the same team. Campanella was the catcher, Hodges was the first baseman.
The normal double play of the Dodgers was a ballet. It was from Jackie on second base, flipping it to Pee Wee, and Pee Wee doing a pirouette and throwing it to Gil Hodges.
Their timing and their sense of each other, their trust of each other's skills, it was fabulous to watch.
And Billy Cox, fantastic third baseman.
And Billy Cox could take a ball at 200 miles an hour, stab it, and count all the stitches, and throw the guy out first.
Snyder was the center fielder.
You know, he was the power.
Duke Snyder and Carl Ferrillo in the outfield, I mean, you couldn't do any better than that.
Wait a minute, Carl Ferrillo. Well, he was an Italian.
We imitated the players. It was all the fantasy of being the Brooklyn Dodgers.
As you came to the stoop, you would be batting as Robinson or as Reese or as Snyder, and you'd go through the lineup.
People would come out to watch the stickball games, and they'd sit on the steps, and there were radios all the time.
The New York Giants over at Ebbets Field.
You could walk down the street and not miss a pitch.
Swung on and missed for strike 3.
Red Barber, singularly responsible for creating the Dodgers before television.
This is the old redhead sitting in the catbird seat down here at Dodgertown.
This is the old redhead jumping up on a log and hollering to you from Brooklyn.
There was such a strong tie between the people of Brooklyn and the Dodgers, and Red Barber was that conduit.
Barber made the Dodgers sound larger than life, but their appeal was just the opposite. They were adored by their fans because they were blue-collar guys who played and stayed in the neighborhood.
Okay, Mother, if your buying is in the hot stove league, see super salesman Jackie Robinson.
They worked in the wintertime. They weren't making the kind of money they made. They weren't above us.
You could see them get off the train. You would walk with them to the ballpark. Hey, Pee-wee, how are you? You talk to him like he was your brother. He was your fan. Hey, the Duke. Hey, Duke.
We were part of a family.
You had a team where the ball players actually lived in the community.
Well, Pee Wee lived a couple of blocks away. Erskine lived a couple of blocks away.
If I pitch a good ball game, or Duke had a big day at bat, or Pee Wee, when we come home, the neighbors had a celebration.
Gil Hodges was living in Brooklyn when his wife was pregnant for about 10 months, waiting for a child. The whole community was concerned.
It was my firstborn with Gilly. I mean, they even had the television cameras at the hospital when I just came out of delivery. Wasn't a very pretty picture, but they got it all.
A different sort of picture was painted daily at Brooklyn's secular cathedral, 55 Sullivan Place, in the neighborhood called Flatbush.
It was the cohesion point for Brooklyn.
You did get to see people from all over the place. You'd be sitting next to somebody, and wherever they came from or whatever their ethnic background, you were buddies because you talked baseball.
It was the principal American location of what a democracy was supposed to be.
And in 1949, Ebbets Field was where all of Brooklyn wanted to be. Robinson was MVP, Newcomb Rookie of the Year. Reese led the league in runs scored, and the Dodgers led the league in attendance. Ebbets Field on game day was a baseball carnival.
We would always try to get to the game as early as you could. So we would always be there to see the kind of end of batting practice and the rituals and, you know, get a few autographs.
There would be so many kids pressing around, you could hardly sign. Kid came back a second time, and when he came a third time, I said, I'm happy to sign. Why would you want 3 of mine? He said, actually, I'd like to have 6. If I get 6 of yours, I can trade it for 1 of Jackie Robinson.
To kids, the Dodgers could do no wrong. Others at the ballpark were tougher to please.
Hilda Chester with her cowbell. And she had a gravel voice, and she'd get on the players big time. Duke was a target because he was a superstar. At one particular incident, Duke had a rough night, and on the way down to our car, Hilda Chester followed us.
She got on me a little bit for having a bad night.
And she said, Duke, you're lousy, you stink. And she was just getting on Duke big time.
And she ranted and raved a little bit more.
And Duke finally had enough, and when Hilda gave him another blast,
I said a couple things to her that I should not have said.
You could see her standing under the street light, her rough features and kind of a fuzz on her chin. And Duke says, Hilda, why don't you go home and shave? It was like a love affair. You can say a lot of strong things to somebody you're in love with, and then you can make up.
And one of the big things at Ebbets Field that was always a joy, there was a group of guys called the Brooklyn Dodgers Symphony Band.
The guy would make an out. He turns and runs back toward the visitors' dugout, and the band would go.
Da-dum, 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 da-dum.
Da-dun, 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 da-dun.
Boom, 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 right in stride. And if the guy had done this before, and he knew it, so he would slow down. They would slow down. If he'd speed up, they'd speed up.
Da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-dum.
And then when he got into the dugout and sat on the bench, boom,
a big kaboom.
It was boisterous, and it was fun.
But something not so fun was becoming all too familiar to Dodger fans.